The late afternoon sun fell on a Scottish valley, where Sam Heughan and Caitriona Balfe decided to take a rare day off from the noise of the film set to picnic together. They had brought a basket of cookies, wine, and an old camera that Sam said he wanted to use to capture moments that will never be repeated. The path leading into the dense forest was eerily quiet. Caitriona laughed and said it was the perfect place to avoid paparazzi. But as darkness fell, the atmosphere became strange. The deeper they went, the more they felt someone was watching them. The rustling of leaves, the crunching of twigs underfoot, all turned the peaceful space into a mysterious veil. When they set up camp by the lake, the water reflected a pale blue moon. Sam took out a bottle of wine, poured it into a glass, and raised it to freedom. But as Caitriona raised her glass to her lips, a soft sound came from behind her, like a whisper. They turned back to see only the dark forest. "Did you hear that?" Caitriona asked, her voice trembling slightly. Sam nodded, squeezing her hand. They decided to turn on their flashlights and go check. A few steps away from the camp, they found a small notebook left on a rock, its pages yellowed as if it had been there for a long time. Sam flipped it open. Inside were scrawled lines describing every detail of their picnic, from the basket of cookies, the bottle of wine, to the phrase, "for freedom," he had just uttered. A chill filled the air. Caitriona stepped back, her eyes wide with horror. "Sam, how did this notebook know what we were doing?" Before either of them could recover, a new line appeared on the last page of the notebook, writing itself right before their eyes. "Tonight, they will not return as before." The breathing was heavy, the woods dead silent. And both Sam and Caitriona knew this was no ordinary getaway. It was the beginning of a mystery that would change everything. Sam stared at the new words in the notebook, frozen in place. The coldness of the damp paper seemed to seep into his hands. Caitriona took a few steps back, her heart pounding. The silence was suffocating, the only sound being the echoes of their heartbeats in their heads. "It can't be, someone's planning this prank," Sam tried to reassure, but his voice was shaking. Caitriona looked around, her sharp eyes searching the darkness. "Sam, no one knows we're here. No one." They returned to camp, but the feeling of unease still lingered. The flickering firelight illuminated the anxiety on both their faces. Sam put the notebook aside, but it still seemed to have a strange pull. Every time his eyes passed over it, the words seemed to move. Night fell. The sound of insects replaced the silence, but instead of comforting them, it only reinforced their isolation. Caitriona wrapped her shawl tightly around her shoulders, sitting close to Sam. "I think we should leave," she whispered. Sam nodded, but as he stood up, he froze. The notebook was open to another page. It read, "They tried to leave, but the path doesn't lead out anymore." They looked at each other, the firelight reflecting in their bewildered eyes. Without another second, Sam grabbed Caitriona's hand and they began to pack. The path back to the edge of the forest was dark, lit only by the flickering light of their flashlights. They walked, then ran, but the further they went, the stranger the landscape became. The tree stumps looked familiar, as if they were turning in circles. "No way," Caitriona gasped. "We're on the right path." Sam stopped, turned on the map on his phone, but the GPS signal was gone. The screen flickered, then went out. In the pitch blackness, the notebook in his backpack vibrated, as if demanding attention. He took it out, and his heart almost stopped. A new page appeared. "They'll meet the ranger, and he'll ask a question." Immediately, footsteps sounded ahead. Slow, heavy, as if someone had been waiting for a long time. A figure appeared in the moonlight. Tall and thin, dressed in a black cloak, his face hidden by a hood. A deep voice rang out, echoing from the ground. "You read the book, right?" Sam shielded Caitriona, growling, "Who are you?" The stranger did not answer. He only raised his hand, and in his palm was a book identical to the one they were holding, but much older and more tattered. This is the diary of those who have been lost in this forest. And now, it is your turn. There is only one way to get out. Answer my question." Caitriona squeezed Sam's hand, whispering, Don't trust him." The stranger stepped closer, his eyes shining in the darkness. "My question is simple. Are you willing to sacrifice one of you so that the other can be free?" The air was thick. The question echoed in their heads like a curse. Sam looked at Caitriona, his eyes full of determination. "No way," he said, his voice hard. "We're getting out of here together." The stranger laughed, a laugh that echoed through the forest. "Everyone says that, but in the end, the book is always right." Immediately, the ground beneath their feet shook. The wind blew, the trees swayed as if stirred by an invisible hand. The campfire behind them died out, and in a flash, they were surrounded by total darkness. Sam pulled Caitriona close, whispering, "I won't let you go." Caitriona nodded, but her eyes followed the book that still glowed strangely in Sam's hand. It wrote a new line, slowly carving like a knife into their hearts. "The choice has begun." In the chaos, they heard the sound of rushing water. A river appeared right in front of them, where the forest had not existed before. The stranger stood on the other bank, his voice echoing, "Once you cross the river, you will know your true fate." Sam did not hesitate. He took Caitriona's hand and plunged into the icy water. The waves rolled strongly, as if they were about to drown them both. Caitriona tried to swim, but the force of the water was too great. Sam used all his strength to hold her, but for a brief moment, their hands almost slipped away. At that moment, Caitriona thought, maybe, sacrificing myself is the only way. But immediately, Sam pulled her into his arms, his eyes full of determination. "No, we will make it together." Strangely, as soon as he said that, the water began to calm. They washed ashore on the other bank, soaked but alive. The stranger disappeared, leaving only the open notebook. On the last page, the words fade. When they refused to sacrifice each other, the curse was broken. Sam and Caitriona looked at each other, their breaths coming in gasps. They knew they weren't really free, but at least they had found a clue. The power to solve this mystery was an inseparable bond. In the distance, a glimmer of light appeared. It could be a way out, or it could be another challenge. They held hands, stepping into the darkness with only one belief. Only together would they have a chance to return. The dim light suddenly went out, the darkness vanished like a curtain being drawn. Sam opened his eyes, cold sweat soaking the back of his shirt. His breathing was rapid, his heart was pounding. Beside him, Caitriona also jumped up, her hand still holding his as if afraid that if she let go, they would both sink into some deep hole again. Where were they? No more dark forest, no more rushing river, no more strange notebook. Instead, they were sitting in a warm hotel room, the curtains swaying gently in the morning breeze. On the table was only an unopened bottle of wine and an untouched picnic basket. "Sam," Caitriona called softly, her voice trembling. "Is this all just a dream?" Sam was silent for a long moment, then nodded. He tried to smile reassuringly, but his eyes still held confusion. The dream had been so real it was hard to believe. Every detail, every sound of wind, every fear still burned into his memory. Caitriona squeezed his hand, whispering, "If it's just a dream, why do I still feel as cold as if I've just been in a river?" They both looked at each other, then simultaneously turned their eyes to the picnic basket. Lying right next to it, on the wooden table, was a small, old notebook. The cover was damp and mottled, as if it had just been fished out of water. No one spoke. In the quiet room, only the ticking of the clock echoed. And in that moment, Sam and Caitriona both understood. There are dreams that are not just dreams.